So you've decided to invest in real estate. That's awesome. Real estate is definitely a way that you can grow your wealth over time to support you, your family, and even your future generations. But before you dive in, you got to think about these 3 questions before you get started. If you don't consider these questions ahead of time, you may find yourself getting into a situation that you just don't like or you want to get out of, but you just can't. And that's not a way to go into this. And I'm saying this from personal experience because I did this myself. And I dove straight into this real estate investing game without really thinking through these questions, which would have really helped. So I want you to start in a smarter way than I did. And my hope is by sharing this, I'll be helping you too. So let's get started. Question number 1. Do you have the time and the desire to learn about real estate investing? It can be said that any type of investing requires research and knowledge. Even stocks require this, although many people just buy a mutual fund or an index fund and kind of set it and forget it. But the fact that you even clicked on this video and are watching right now tells me that you're probably different. You want to be smart about it, take control in your own hands, and begin seeking information. And that's great. The first part of this question is regarding time. Do you have the time it takes to learn about real estate investing? Now, say you're a doctor that works 60 to 80 hours a week, and you've got a family with small kids at home, and you want to spend time with the family too. It's going to be difficult for you to invest much time in learning about real estate investing. On the other hand, perhaps you and your spouse are now empty nesters. The children have left the house. They're older now. And you've got more time on your hands and you want to dedicate your time to something else. Regardless of which end of the spectrum you're on in terms of how busy you are, you need to consider the amount of time you can invest in learning about this. How much time? Well, that's really going to depend on the strategy that you decide to go for, which we're going to talk about in question 2. The amount of time it'll take can vary a lot. In our case, my wife and I are empty nesters, and I have a job that doesn't require me to work nights and weekends very often. So I have time to invest into this. The second part of this question has to do with desire. Do you really want to learn about real estate investing? Because you need to have a fire inside of you that isn't satisfied with putting all your money in the stock market and just setting it and forgetting it, or putting all your money in a shoebox and putting it under your bed. You're not satisfied by that. You want an alternative that's been proven to generate wealth over time. And depending on the approach you take, you may have to maintain this desire for years. Do you get excited thinking about real estate? Well, maybe it's a bit early right now for you, and you're just kind of getting to know how things work. But in my case, I started out curious, and as I got more and more familiar with it, I become more and more interested in real estate investing, to the point to where now I have a big fire inside of me, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. So for me, it's a pretty easy answer. But think about it for you. Do you feel like you have that fire? Or perhaps if you learn more about it, you could. I recommend just learning more about real estate investing and seeing if it's something that really catches on inside of you. Question number 2. Do you want your involvement in real estate to be active or passive? This one is so critical to understand before you get started. Do you want to roll up your sleeves as an active real estate investor and actually be hands-on with your properties? Or do you prefer to be passive and invest your money with somebody else that can be hands-on on your behalf? Neither approach is necessarily better than the other, but you just need to figure out what approach you want to take right now so that you get yourself on the right path. Now, in general, being an active real estate investor generally gives you better returns than being a passive real estate investor, but that's not always true. And being an active real estate investor means you have to invest a lot of time as well. And if time is the one thing you don't have, then perhaps being a passive investor is really what you want to do. If you're not looking to invest a lot of time into real estate investing, but you really like it and you think it's a great alternative asset class, then you can certainly be a successful passive investor. Most of the videos on this channel that I've created so far have been a lot about being a passive investor because I've been one myself. And there are many ways to get involved as a passive investor. There's everywhere from REITs, which don't cost very much money at all, to actually acquiring properties, to even investing in real estate syndications. So there's a lot of options in terms of being a passive investor that you can look at. Now, I also want to dispel a myth that you might hear on the internet or on YouTube that there's no such thing as passive real estate. And I disagree with that because it is true, there's no such thing as passive real estate, but it doesn't have to be you actually doing the work. It can be somebody else doing it on your behalf. And so that's what a real estate syndication is. That's what a REIT is. So there are options out there for passive investing that give you a lot of benefits, like getting some great returns and having tax advantages that go along with that. And you don't have to do the work per se. One of the approaches I happen to like a lot for passive investors is real estate syndications, which I've done myself. If you don't know what a real estate syndication is, that's no problem. I've created sort of an introductory video, which you can click on in the description. So in my case, I decided to take the active investor route, and my wife is on board with it. So we ended up getting a few long-term rentals, a short-term rental, and now I'm co-owners of hundreds of apartments. We decided to be active in real estate, and I really enjoy working on this real estate portfolio. For us, it fits us better because I'm at a stage in my life right now where I want to dig my hands into something new, and this is something that I've fallen in love with, and I think this can really help people once you learn how to do this right. We can't wait for this portfolio to grow, but it does take a lot of work. And having a W-2, I have to work nights and weekends really to get this accomplished. How much work does it take? It really depends on your strategy and what you decide to go for. For example, we purchased a short-term rental about a year ago, and that's been a really eye-opening experience because running a short-term rental, yeah, there's a real estate component to it, but it's really more like operating a hospitality business. If you go into a short-term rental ignoring the hospitality piece, it is not going to work. So really think about this question carefully. Do you want to be an active investor or a passive investor? And believe me, neither one is better than the other. The one that's best is the one that's right for you, because being active or passive, both of those options are a lot better than doing nothing and not getting into real estate at all. Hi, real quick. If you're liking this video, please click the like button. And that lets YouTube know that this video is valuable for other beginner real estate investors. Now, back to the video. Question number 3. How much money do you plan on investing? The amount of money at your disposal is also a big factor in how you're going to get started. How much do you want to set aside for real estate investing? Is it $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million? Combine this monetary amount that you're thinking of with the answers to the previous questions that I talked about here today, and you're going to understand much better what your strategy should be going forward. As you can imagine, the less money you have to get started, you have less options, especially if you're trying to invest in a very expensive part of the country. But you do have options nonetheless. One of the things that I enjoy about real estate investing, and frankly, entrepreneurship in general, is the amount of creativity that you can bring to this. And having less money means you can be creative and come up with solutions to things that nobody thought of. And for you to get to that point, you need to be learning about real estate to be able to identify opportunities that are in front of you. Now, I've said this before in other videos, and I'm going to say this again. I would not put every single dollar you have in real estate, especially as a beginner. It's just way too risky. Even if you have millions to invest, I would invest no more than 10% of your net worth to get started. You will learn a ton over the first 1, 2, 3 years that'll help you see what you like and what you don't like in real estate investing. And because you won't be that far invested in it, you'll be able to correct and do things and go in a direction that for you is really interesting. Real estate is not a get-rich-quick strategy. And if you try to make it like that, you're going to run into trouble. Plus, you may learn that the strategy that you're taking isn't one that you like after a year or two and you want to course correct. And because you're not that far invested in it, you can do that. In my case, my wife and I started with a variety of different types of real estate investing just to get a flavor of what they're like. Long-term rentals, short-term rentals, apartments, real estate syndications, both as a passive investor and as a general partner. And now, after a few years, we have a lot better idea of what they're all like. We know so much more now than we did when we started that I think it would have been nice to start a little bit slower so we could conserve more of our cash, because probably like you, my cash is limited. This is why I make this recommendation to you. Start slowly, pick a strategy and see how you like it. And if you don't like it, you can course correct and try something else. This isn't a race, and trying to make it a race is going to lead you into trouble. So there you go. These are the 3 questions that I would think of before you start getting into real estate investing. These are so critical. And if you do think about these questions prior, you'll be much better positioned for success in the future. So one of the most important questions is whether you want to be an active or passive investor. And there's a lot to kind of think about with that. So if you're kind of thinking that as well, I created a video that talks about that, which you can click on right here. So thank you for watching the Immigrant Wealth channel.